let's talk about a team who's been in a cup final in the past couple of years and has only been around for the past couple of years. The Vegas Golden Knights. This team is stacked. This is the best Knights team, I think, of their 3 years of existence. Their top end talent has always been their kind of what they were lacking, and now they have it with the re-emergence of Max Pacioretty and then Mark Stone there as well. They do have superstars on the team now to go along with absolutely elite depth. So this is a very good team. Initial thoughts, Marshall. Let's start with you.
So I've said this on previous podcasts, I think on the Abs podcast, that this was my preseason pick to win the Stanley Cup, and I'm not necessarily going to be swaying from this conversation. If you guys haven't checked it out, go check out our Abs Western Conference bracket. And I think that the actual Western Conference final that we had in that bracket was the Abs versus the Knights.
Yeah.
Two similarly constructed teams. The Avs might have a little bit more high-end talent. The Knights might have some more depth. But, gosh, this Knights team from, 1 through 4 is so stacked. And, they can play that defensive game. Mark Stone is my third winger in the NHL right now. I think he's a top-flight player, even though he lacks the explosiveness and the high-end scoring ability. But still, Max Pacioretty, people forget about Stassi and Willem Karlsson and Marchessault and Riley Smith, just all the way through the roster. And they have the guys like the Ryan Reeves and that can play that kind of dirty game that you need in the postseason. So, yeah, I like this team a lot, and I could see them definitely going far.
Yeah, this just go.
Yeah, Zach,
Vegas is
go ahead.
Oh, sorry, but Vegas is just the kind of team that I really enjoy watching. They're a they're high skilled and grindy at the same time, which is kind of something that you don't see too much. And I'd like to see the Avs maybe adopt a little bit more. And I'd like to touch on their defense as well. Their defense, a little bit looks like on the older side, but still very highly skilled. A lot of players on this defense can still move the puck up the ice and turn it to the forwards that are very highly skilled as well. They also have very good older veteran depth, like good Paul Stastny types, players like that that can really bring the punch on that third line.
Yeah, and the younger guy they do have on defense, Shea Theodore, who I think this guy might win a Norris in his career. Not this year, but a very, very good defenseman. Absolutely robbed Anaheim in that trade. Yeah. I think that big X factor for me. Karim, what are your thoughts on the Knights?
Everyone's saying it. Their lines 1 through 4 can play with the best of them. You guys already hit on everything, really. They're flashy, but can grind you out at the same time. They can hit you with skill. They can hit you with just pure effort. And, their goalie situation,
that's something
it's pretty favorable. On. You got Flower.
Yeah,
and you got
Leonard.
Of all the
Leonard's
teams that have of all the teams that have a decision to make it goalie, I feel like this is the best one because they have the two best goalies of everyone that's kind of trying to figure out who they're going to start.
Absolutely.
Yeah, these are both number one goalies right here for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Fleury's kind of had a down year, but that's why they brought Leonard in.
Yeah, Leonard had a great year in Chicago, didn't he, last year?
Yeah,
earned himself back into the league.
He earned himself back in the league with the Islanders.
Oh, okay.
When did he win the Vezina? Or he was...
he won the Masterton.
Oh, he won the Masterton, and then he was a runner-up for the Vezina. And then Islanders let him go. He goes to Chicago, and then Chicago lets him go. So I'm not too sure if there's character issues there, but in terms of talent, Leonard is... Yeah. I know there used to be, some personal issues with Leonard, but it's kind of interesting to me that you have a top-flight goaltender who just bounces around teams.
Yeah. Especially with goalies who are kind of isolated on a team anyway. It's kind of goalies are expected to be weird, so if they are causing problems, that's interesting Like,
Yeah.
we obviously don't know if Leonard is causing problems or maybe it's just some weird coincidence. Like, maybe Chicago just really believed in Crawford or whatever. But it's definitely interesting when you see a player of that caliber moving around so often.
Yeah. I mean, he's played 3 games with the Knights so far, has won all 3 games, and has a 940 save percentage and a 167 goal GAA, and a shutout. So, yeah, I think that they're going to run with Leonard going into the postseason.
I would, but I think, I don't know. I can't decide what I think they'll do. I would go with Leonard, but
See, this is
when you
another
got a cup-winning
situation-
goaltender like Fleury,
Yeah, it's another situation. I take the vet, the Stanley Cup winner here, and that's Marc-Andre
Right. Yeah.
Fleury.
I mean, he had a good
mean-
postseason last year, even though it was kind of shaky at the start.
Yeah, he's had that throughout his career, though. He's been a shaky playoff goaltender.
Yeah,
Lot
I
of-
mean, he
lot of
hasn't
bad goals.
truly. If you look at it, though, Fleury has 3 Stanley Cups to him,
Mhm.
but he's really only won one of them. I mean,
Well, it's a team game. It's a team game.
yeah,
well, yeah, but he hasn't been the starter the whole time.
it
he's
is
had
a
other
team
guys
game.
there.
But if you're like a goalie, if you're sitting on the bench, you're not really, like
Well, I
participating
guess.
for the
I
team.
guess, yeah, that's true. That's true.
I mean, he did like take the Knights to the Stanley Cup that one year, and
Right.
it's no disrespect to Flower, but
No.
yeah, he has shown that he can be really shaky at times, and he hasn't had his best season this year. So, I think they brought in Leonard for a reason.
He probably did.
Give him a shot, and then if he starts like performing poorly in the postseason, go back to your trusty old vet. I mean, Fleury is getting up there in age; he's 35 now.
Right.
Yeah, not a young guy. Another kind of aspect of this team I wanted to touch on is the first draft pick the Vegas Golden Knights ever selected was Cody Glass. He's kind of worked his way into the NHL this year. What do you guys expect out of this kid, and where do you think he kind of slots in their lineup? Marshall, let's start with you.
Okay, so yeah, I'll start here. I really like Cody Glass. He was one of my favorite, draft picks out of that draft that Vegas was selecting their first draft pick with. I still think that he's 4th, 3rd line center, but he's only 20 years old, and I think that he's going to be a key part of their future. But I don't see him having a huge impact in the postseason.
Okay. I think that maybe he uses this offseason to kind of take that step, like we've talked about with a couple young players in this series. So I think I think he's going to be their 3rd line center. I think he might be a little bit of an X factor. I think maybe if he takes that step and kind of becomes makes that 3rd line almost into another 2nd line. I know they kind of have 2 first lines right now, but really even elevates that 3rd line further. I think could be really interesting to watch and see how that plays out. Zach, what do you think of Glass?
Looks like I don't really know too much about him. He has 5 goals, 7 assists on the season. He's played 39 games. He looks like a big center, kind of. He's 6'2", almost 200 pounds. Looks like he just needs to play his game. I don't really know too much about Cody Glass. I know he was their first overall draft pick, but I haven't watched him too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, he's kind of a guy that does fly under the radar.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you're looking at the class that he came out of, the first 5 picks included Heiskanen, Makar, and Elias Pettersson, so he definitely gets forgotten being the next pick after that. Run of 3 right there. But a very solid player and looks like a key piece of their future. We don't know what he'll be in this particular playoff run. Another little fun aspect, I think Marshall touched on it a little bit, but they've got a Ryan Reeves on their team, and that's something that not a lot of teams in this playoffs have, real true enforcers. There's not a ton of those guys left. What does Reeves bring to the table for you guys?
Just the intimidation factor on this guy. Not only can he skate, but he can just body you out there as well. Not a guy you're trying to pick a fight with. Not a guy that's going to score very many goals or be in, the play very often when you're scoring or making a play. But he's a guy that he's just there for the intimidation factor and stand up for the higher skilled players.
Yeah, Zach touched on it. A little bit of interesting, you know, way to look at this return to play format is that if a lot of guys are having to spend a bunch of time, you know, just around each other a lot, there might be some increased tension, which might lead to some on ice, like, you know, skirmishes more than normal. So I might just be like shooting at my butt there, but I mean, this is, you know, an unprecedented time that we're living in the NHL, and maybe more than ever you can use the big body like enforcer that's going to stand up for anyone and makes you think twice before you hit someone in the numbers.
Yeah, definitely an interesting thought there. Like, I hadn't ever thought of that, but definitely there could be some increased aggressiveness. It could go either way, honestly. I don't know how this is going to play out, but maybe there's a couple extra fights this year, some bench brawls, and having Ryan Reeves will help you out there.
Yeah. But yeah,
Right.
I really like this Vegas Golden Knights team. Mark Stone's just one of my favorite players in the NHL, and I feel like he's one of the most underrated superstars out there. Because of his two-way game.
I know how high you are on Stone.
Yeah. And not only that, but then they have, you know, just depth up and down their lineup. So I'm just going to go out and say it. They're a contender for me. I know we haven't had a non-contender yet in the NHL. But
everyone's a contender.
But
I mean, we'll get to a couple teams that probably aren't, but so far everyone we've talked about has been a contender. Karim, what do you think about Vegas? Contender or pretender?
I think they're gonna contend, man.
Yep.
Straight up.
Zach?
Yeah, clearly a contender. Marshall, he hints on it in the beginning. This is definitely a favorite from the beginning to win the Stanley Cup this year, so I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a team that has proven in the past couple of years that they know how to get it done in the playoffs too. Went to a cup final 2 years ago. Last year, they got screwed out of a second round appearance by the refs. Sorry, Sharks fans, but the refs took you through 2 series last year.
Yep.
Landeskog was not offsides. But yeah, the Knights, the Knights are a contender, and it's an easy one. You know, if you win your division in general in the NHL, you're a contender. So, one of the best teams in the West, and as an Avs fan, one of the teams that I'm most worried if we do have to run up against them.